All right. Well, welcome everyone to our Friday night Bible study. We certainly want to welcome those who are live with us, those who are joining us on Zoom, and also those that will be seeing this once this drops on our YouTube channel on Tuesday. Welcome to tonight's Bible study. We're going to be covering part 2 of the book of Exodus. We're getting ready to get into some very serious territory. A lot of truth is going to be coming out in this message. So definitely be prepared to take notes. Some very important things that's taking place. The book of Exodus really is a microcosm of what the Most High is doing in the earth. Egypt represents the world, and they have an agenda, and the Most High has an agenda. And the real question is, who's going to win, right? Who's going to win? And so we're getting a chance to see this play out in this Egyptian nation, which is at the time of Moshe, of Moses, is the greatest nation on the planet. Egypt, or Mizraim, is the most powerful nation on the planet. And so it is the perfect scenario to see who is God, right? Who is Elohim? Who is all powerful? And so we're going to be dealing with that in today's lesson. So we're going to go ahead and get into this. I'm going to go ahead and pray, and we're going to get right into this lesson. Again, take notes, be prepared. If you have questions at the end, we'll be dealing with that. All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'sevanu la'asuk b'divri Torah. Blessed are you, Yahweh our Elohim, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with your commandments and command us to engross ourselves in the words of Torah. And as always, we count it an honor and a privilege to be able to do just that. All right, so let's get into this today. So we're talking about the book of Exodus, part 2. The battle begins. It begins today. All right. We're preparing to go into chapter 5 and the showdown with Moshe and Pharaoh. We must visit the book of Genesis, Cush, Nimrod, and the Tower of Babel, so you can get a really good foundation of what's taking place here today. Now, the Tower of Babel was a very important event that was discussed in the book of Genesis, but I'm going to make it clear why we have to revisit this. We know that they built the Tower of Babel to ascend into heaven for the purpose of defeating Elohim. They all spoke the same language, and they refused to obey Elohim. So the Tower of Babel is a very important symbol in the occult world. And it illustrates rebellion against Elohim and the masculinity, which is why they all look the same. This is one of the obelisks that showed up in Egypt. Egypt, like Babylon before them, and other pagan nations built and displayed the obelisk in defiance of Elohim. As Cush was building the Tower of Babel, Yahweh came down to investigate what Cush was doing. And as a result of discovering their plan, he decided to confound all the languages. And as a result of that, the people not being able to understand each other, the people were scattered, and Cush was disgraced. And Cush brought forth Nimrod, his son, and he began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before Yahweh. Therefore, it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yahweh. In the beginning of his reign was where his father left off, which was in Babel. So why is all this important? Because under Nimrod and what took place in Babel was the birth of all occult religion, all of the occult. And when their languages were confounded, all their occult relics were scattered across the world with all the various nations and their various languages, Egypt just being one of them. The mystery religion of Babylon. So we can see Egypt is one of those who embrace the mystery religion that was founded in Babylonia. And the key to it is that it is polytheistic. What does that mean? Polytheism is a belief in many gods, not just the one, true Elohim. It is a belief in many gods. We have here a list of the most prominent gods based upon the nations around the world. And in Egypt, Ra is a predominant one there, right? He is the sun god, the father god. Then you have Isis, who's the moon goddess, and you have Horus, which is the sun god reborn. So as a result of that, the Most High called out Abram, whose name was changed to Abraham. He had his son Isaac. Isaac had Jacob and the 12 sons, and they became the 12 tribes of Israel, the Israelites, the true biblical people of Elohim. And their greatest commandment, hear, O Israel, Yahweh our Elohim, Yahweh is one. There are not multiple gods. There's no polytheism. There is one true Elohim. But what we have now, we started at Babylon and is continuing even unto this day, is monotheism, the belief in one true Elohim versus polytheism. And this clash, if you will, of truth versus this error of polytheism is in full effect. The one true Elohim versus the many gods of the world. One God with many names. The one that's in charge of all this polytheism, behind the scenes person is Satan. Some call him Lucifer, some call him Baal, and he's known by many other names. But he is still the false god who happens to be in charge of this current world system. In Egypt, he is known as Ra. He's going to come up in the study during this series of lessons. So this brings us to chapter 5 of Exodus. Elohim has chosen a time in history when Egypt was the most potent polytheistic nation on the planet. The Pharaoh was also worshipped as God, refused to let Elohim's people, the children of Yisra'eel, go free. The eyes of the world are on Egypt and Pharaoh. Will this powerful polytheistic nation and Pharaoh exert their will over the Elohim of the children of Israel? Or will the Elohim of this powerless group of enslaved people prevail? That's the question. That's the question. Let's revisit Elohim's promise to Abraham from Genesis 15. And he said to Abraham, know of a certainty that your seed are to be sojourners in a land that is not their own, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And look what he says here in verse 14. For the nation whom they serve, I am going to judge. And afterward, let them come out with a great possession. But it says there again in verse 14, for the nation whom they serve for the 400 years, I am going to judge. And afterward, let them come out with great possessions. And it came to be, when the sun went down and it was dark, that see, a smoking oven and a burning torch passed between those pieces. That was a representation of Elohim's presence going between the sacrifice. On the same day, Yahweh made a covenant with Abram, saying, look what he says here now, I have given this land to your seed, from the river of Mizraim or Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates. So all that land in the mind of Elohim already belongs to his people. He said, I have given you that. Here's how the Most High thinks. If I said I'm going to do something, count it as done, because I'm not going to go back on my word. He said, on the same day, Yahweh made a covenant with Abram, saying, I have given this land to your seed. Not I'm thinking about it, not I might. He said, I have done it. It is a done deal. How many hear what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So the judgments of Egypt, these are going to be 10 plagues that we're going to see play out during our lesson in the book of Exodus. 10 plagues and the corresponding Egyptian gods that are associated with these plagues. The first being water turned to blood, That is the god Hapi. The second one is frogs coming from the Nile. That is the god Heket. The third one are gnats from the earth's dust. That is Gib. The fourth one is swarms of flies, and that is Kepri. The fifth one is death of the cattle and livestock. That is Hathor. The sixth one is ashes turned to boils and sores, and that is Isis, the moon goddess. Right? She's going to be judged. The seventh one, hell in the form of fire, and that is their god Nut. The eighth one, locusts sent from the sky, that is Seth. Ninth one, 3 days of complete darkness, and that's their greatest one, Ra. And finally, death of the firstborn. So that's death of a Pharaoh, because the firstborn of Pharaoh is destined to be the next Pharaoh. And remember, Pharaoh is worshipped in Egypt as a god. I want to say this, Yahweh, he is Elohim. He's going to judge all these guys. And at the end of all this process, we're going to find out who the true Elohim really is. So let's begin our study of the book of Exodus, part 2. We're going into chapter 5 now. And afterwards, Moshe and Aaron went in and said to Pharaoh, "Thus says Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, let my people go, so they can celebrate a festival to me in the wilderness." And Pharaoh said, "Who is Yahweh, that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know Yahweh, nor am I going to let Israel go." And they said, "The Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us. Please, let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and slaughter to Yahweh, our Elohim, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with a sword." But the sovereign of Mizraim said to them, "Moshe and Aaron, why do you take the people from their work? Get back to your burdens." And Pharaoh said, "See, the people of the land are many now, and you make them cease from their burdens." And the same day, Pharaoh commanded the slave drivers of the people and their foremen, saying, "You are no longer to give the people straw to make bricks as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves, and lay on them the required amount of bricks which they made before. Do not diminish it, for they are idle. That is why they cry out, saying, 'Let us go and slaughter to our Elohim.' Let more work be laid on the men, so that they labor in it and not pay attention to the words of falsehood." And the slave drivers of the people and their foremen went out and spoke to the people, saying, "Thus says Pharaoh, I do not give you straw. Go, take straw for yourselves, wherever you find it, for your work shall not be diminished." And the people were scattered in all the land of Mizraim to gather stubble for straw. And the slave drivers were hurrying on them, saying, "Fulfill your actions, your daily matters, as when there was straw." Also the foremen of the children of Israel, whom Pharaoh's slave drivers had set over them, were struck and were asked, "Why have you not fulfilled your law in making bricks, both yesterday and today, as before?" And the foreman of the children of Israel came and cried out to Pharaoh, saying, "Why do you treat your servants this way? There is no straw given to your servants, and they say to us, 'Make bricks.' And see, your servants are struck, but your own people are at fault." But he said, "You are idle. You are idle. That is why you say, 'Let us go and slaughter to Yahweh.' So now go work. The straw is not given to you, but deliver the amount of bricks." And the foreman of the children of Israel saw that they were in trouble after it was said, "You are not to diminish your daily amount of bricks." This Pharaoh is putting more heat on them. He's putting more pressure on them, right? And when they came out from Pharaoh, they met Moshe and Aharon, who stood there to meet them. And they said to them, let Yahweh look on you and judge, because you have made us loathsome in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants, to give a sword in their hand, to kill us. And Moshe returned to Yahweh and said, Yahweh, why have you done this evil to this people? Why do you send me? For ever since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, and you have not delivered your people at all. Chapter 6. And Yahweh said to Moshe, now see what I do to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand, he is going to let them go. And with a strong hand, he's going to drive them out of this land. And Elohim spoke to Moshe and said to him, I am Yahweh. And I appeared to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Yaakov as El Shaddai, and by my name Yahweh was I not known to them. And I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their sojournings, in which they have sojourned. And I have also heard the groanings of the children of Israel, whom the Mizrahites are enslaving. And I have remembered my covenant. If you want to impress the Most High, approach him with covenant language. He's a covenant keeper, and he honors those that honor his covenant. Say therefore to the children of Israel, I am Yahweh, and I shall bring you out from under the burdens of the Mizrahites, and shall deliver you from their enslaving, and shall redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. What are the great judgments? He's going to judge the Mizrahites. He's going to judge all their gods to let them know who the true Elohim really is. That's what this whole scenario is all about. Who is Elohim? And shall take you as my people, and I shall be your Elohim. And you shall know that I am Yahweh, your Elohim, who is bringing you out from under the burdens of the Mizrahites. And I shall bring you into a land which I swore to give to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Yaakov, to give it to you as an inheritance. And what does it say again? I am Yahweh. Don't get it twisted. If I said it, I'm going to do it. If I spoke it, I'm going to bring this thing to pass. And Moshe spoke thus to the children of Israel, but they did not listen to Moshe because of the shortness of spirit and from hard slavery. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, go in, speak to Pharaoh, sovereign of Israel, to let the children of Israel go out of his land. And Moshe spoke before Yahweh, saying, the children of Israel have not listened to me. And why would Pharaoh listen to me? For I am of uncircumcised lips. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aharon, and gave them a command for the children of Israel and for Pharaoh, sovereign of Israel, to bring the children of Israel out of the land of Israel. And these are the heads of their fathers' houses, the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, Hanak, and Palu, and Hetzron, and Carmi. These are the clans of Reuben, and the sons of Shimon, Shemuel, and Yamin, and Ohad, and Yakin, and Sohar, and Shaul, the son of the Canaanite woman. These are the clans of Shimon. These are the names of the sons of Levi, according to their generations, Gershon, and Kehath, and Merari. And the years of the life of Levi were 137 years. The sons of Gershon, Libni, and Shimi, according to their clans. And the sons of Kehath, Amram, and Yitzhar, and Shebron, and Uzziel. And the years of the life of Kehath was 133. And the sons of Merari, Mali, and Mushi. These are the clans of Levi, according to their generations. And Amram took for himself Jochebed, his father's sister, as wife, and she bore him Aharon, and Moshe. And the years of the life of Amram were 137. And the sons of Yisra'eel, Korah, and Naphi, and Zikri. And the sons of Ezuel, Mishael, and El-Tepshpan, El-Tepshpan, right? And Sithri. Aharon took to himself Elisheba, daughter of Aminadab, sister of Nahshon, as wife. And she bore him Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. I highlighted Nadab and Abihu because they're going to have a kind of an important part. It's going to happen later on in the book. Verse 24. And the sons of Korah, Asir, Elkanah, and Abiasaph. These are the clans of the Korites. And Eleazar, Aaron's son, took for himself one of the daughters of Pethuel as wife, and she bore him Phinehas. These are the heads of the fathers of Levites according to their clans. This is Aharon and Moshe, to whom Yahweh said, bring out the children of Israel from the lands of Mizraim according to their divisions. They were the ones who spoke to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mizraim, to bring out the children of Israel from Mizraim. This is Moshe and Aharon. The Most High thought it was important to include their lineage going back to the original 12, so that we would know that these are the same brothers that are descendants from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Mm-hmm. That's why he did that. And I thought about saying, I'm going to include this because the Most High saw it as being important to include that, to let everybody know this is that group of people. He's a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He came from Levi. And it came to be on the day when Yahweh spoke to Moshe in the land of Mizraim, that Yahweh spoke to Moshe saying, I am Yahweh. Speak to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mizraim, all that I say to you. And Moshe said before Yahweh, see, I am of uncircumcised lips. And why would Pharaoh listen to me? So notice now early in Moshe's calling, he has a lot of self-doubt, mm-hmm. right? He is not believing in himself. Not even the children of Israel are listening to him. So he's saying, if they're not going to listen, why in the world would the sovereign of Mizraim listen to me? Who am I that they should listen to me, right? And that's where he's at right now. He has no self-confidence. He has no confidence, and that's all good. Mm-hmm. Because the Most High wants his confidence in him. Mm-hmm. He says, I am Yahweh. That's who you need to be counting in, not yourself, Moshe. Chapter 7. So Yahweh said to Moshe, see, I have made you an Elohim to Pharaoh, and Aharon, your brother, is your prophet. You shall speak all that I command you, and Aharon, your brother, shall speak to Pharaoh, to let the children of Israel go out of his land. But I am going to harden the heart of Pharaoh, and shall increase my signs and my wonders in the land of Mizraim. In other words, I have selected this Pharaoh. I have selected this time and this season as an opportunity for me to let the world know who I am. Mm-hmm. I have been silent for centuries, letting all of this polytheism expand all across the world. All the nations of the world are serving many gods who are false gods, gods they made with their own hands. But I have reserved for myself a people group who went into Mizraim, 70 souls, who are now grown into a nation mm-hmm. of 2 million or more. And through this slave nation, this nation that has no power on their own, I'm going to show myself strong and mighty through the greatest nation on the planet, the greatest military on the planet, right? A Pharaoh who calls himself God. I'm going to show myself strong and mighty through this circumstance. So I'm going to read this again. This is the Most High speaking. But I am going to harden the heart of Pharaoh, and shall increase my signs and my wonders in the land of Mizraim. And Pharaoh is not going to listen to you. And I shall lay my hand on Mizraim and bring my divisions and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Mizraim by great judgments. So he's just saying, Moshe, watch me work. Watch me work. Just get an understanding of what I'm getting ready to do, because it's going to be glorious in your eyes. And the Mizraim shall know, they shall know that I am Yahweh, when I stretch out my hand on Mizraim, and I shall bring the children of Israel out from among them. And Moshe and Aharon did as Yahweh commanded them, so they did. Now Moshe was 80 years old, and Aharon 83 years old when they spoke to Pharaoh. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aharon, saying, when Pharaoh speaks to you, saying, show a miracle for yourselves, then you shall say to Aharon, take your rod and throw it before Pharaoh, and let it become a serpent. So Moshe and Aharon went in to Pharaoh, and they did so as Yahweh commanded. And Aharon threw his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. But Pharaoh also called the wise men and the practitioners of witchcraft. See, that's another thing that he's up against, right? Witchcraft. There's a lot of people in the land today. It's all in the witchcraft. You know, black magic, white magic, all this stuff. You know, it's prevalent in the land. But Yahweh is against that.
Yes.
And they, the magicians of Mizraim, also did so with what? Their magic. And they each one threw down his rod, and they became serpents. So I'm going to say something here. Is magic real? Yes, it is. Is there power in magic? Yes, it is. But that power and that ability comes from Satan. And it is not where the Most High wants you to be relying yourself on. He does not want you to be wrapped up, tied up, tangled up in this magic foolishness, in this sorcery, in casting spells, and all this foolishness. And that is why he is coming up against this nation today that we're discussing. He's trying to make a difference between the holy and the unholy, the clean and the unclean, right? He wants people to have an understanding of what's right and what is wrong. And so it's going to be unfolded as this thing goes forward. Keep watching. And they each one threw down his rod, and they became serpents. But the rod of Aharon swallowed up their rods, 4 against 1, and they stood no match against Elohim. And Pharaoh's heart was strengthened or hardened, and he did not listen to them as Yahweh had said. And Yahweh said to Moshe, the heart of Pharaoh is hard. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning. As he goes out to the water, you shall stand by the riverbank to meet him. And take in your hand the rod which is turned into a serpent, and you shall say to him, Yahweh, the Elohim of the Hebrews, has sent me to you, saying, let my people go, so they may serve me in the wilderness. But see, until now you have not listened. Thus says Yahweh, by this you know that I am Yahweh. See, I am striking the water which are in the river with the rod that is in my hand, and they shall be turned to blood. And the fish in the river shall die, and the river shall stink, and the Mizraim shall find it impossible to drink the water of the river. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying to Aharon, take your rod and stretch out your hand over the waters of the Mizraim, over their streams, over their rivers, over their ponds, and over all the pools of water, that they become blood, and there should be blood in all the land of the Mizraim. Look at the water here. It's transforming. Water coming out of this vessel, coming out, it was clear. Now it's turning to blood. From the left to right is turning from blue to red, right? Both in wooden and in stone containers. They had clear water in containers. When they went to go drink it, it had turned to blood. And Moshe and Aharon did so, as Yahweh commanded. And he lifted up the rod and struck the waters that were in the river. And in the eyes of Pharaoh, in the eyes of his servants, and you can see the water turning to blood. And all the waters that were in the rivers were turned to blood. And the fish that were in the river died, and the river stank. Can you imagine they in there swimming? Right. And all of a sudden, dead fish floating up. And the Mizrahites were unable to drink the water of the river, and the blood was in all the land of Mizraim. And the magicians of Mizraim did the same with their magic. And the heart of Pharaoh was strengthened or hardened, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh has said. So you notice what's happening here. It's almost a tit for tat. You know, all Pharaoh want to know is, can my magicians duplicate what Moshe is doing right now? And if I can see them doing the same thing, I have no confidence that he has more power than we got. Right? So as long as they can do it, I'm good to go. I'm gonna harden my heart. We still got juice in the land. We still the greatest nation on the planet. Let's go, boys. That's what he's saying. And Pharaoh turned and went into his house, and his heart was not moved by this either. I can care less about water turning to blood. My men can do the same things. And all the Mizrahites dug all around the river for water to drink, for they were unable to drink the water of the river. And 7 days were completed after Yahweh had struck the river. That's his number. That's number 7. 7 of completion. Chapter 8. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, go to Pharaoh and say to him, thus says Yahweh, let my people go so they may serve me. But if you refuse to let them go, see, I am smiting all your borders with frogs. Now notice here, this is a statue of a frog. This is one of their gods that they worship. So you see how he's judging them. You know, all these things that you have confidence in, all these foolish things that you worship in, things you made with your own hands that you worship in, I'm flipping the script and turning it against you. Right. That's what Elohim is doing through Moshe. He is judging their gods as nothing. He is judging their gods as nothing and letting them see that these things that you worship, these things that you have value in, I twist and turn them with a word. And I can turn those things that you worship against you. Watch me work. And the rivers shall swarm with frogs, which shall go up and come out into your houses and into your bedroom and on your bed and in the house of your servants. It'll be all over the place. And on your people and into your ovens and in your kneading bowls. I mean, no peace. And the frogs shall come up on you and on your people and on all your servants. They are swarmed with them. And Yahweh said to Moshe, say to Aharon, stretch out your hand with your rod over the streams, over the rivers, and over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up on the land of Mizraim. You can already see him creeping into the throne room, right? So Aharon stretched out his hand over the waters of Mizraim, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Mizraim. And the magicians did so with their magic, and brought up frogs on the land of Mizraim. So it's still tit for tat so far, right? It's still an even game. And Pharaoh then called for Moshe and Aharon and said, pray to Yahweh to take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I shall let the people go to slaughter to Yahweh. And Moshe said to Pharaoh, explain yourself to me. When am I to pray for you and for your servants and for your people to destroy the frogs from you and your houses and remain only in the river? Tell me what day you want this to happen, in other words. So he said, tomorrow. And he said, let it be according to your word, so that you know that there is no one like Yahweh, our Elohim. That's the battle. And the frogs shall turn aside from you and from your houses and from your servants and from your people. They shall remain in the river only. And Moshe and Aharon went out from Pharaoh And Moshe cried out to Yahweh concerning the frogs, which he had brought against Pharaoh. And Yahweh did according to the word of Moshe. And the frogs died out of the houses, out of the courtyards, and out of the fields. And they gathered them up together in heaps, and the land stank. And when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart and did not listen to them, as Yahweh has said. Yeah, you stubborn, buddy. You stubborn. And Yahweh said to Moshe, say to Aaron, stretch out your rod and strike the dust of the land, so they become gnats in all the land of Mitzrayim. And they did so. And Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod and struck the dust of the earth, and it became gnats on man and beast. And the dust of the land became gnats in all the land of Mitzrayim. And the magicians did similarly with their magic to bring forth gnats, but they were unable. They didn't hit a wall. They were unable, and they were gnats on man and beast. The magicians then said to Pharaoh, this is the finger of Elohim. But the heart of Pharaoh was strengthened, and he did not listen to them as Yahweh had said. So now even his magicians are realizing there's more power than we even got. And Yahweh said to Moshe, rise early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh, and as he comes out of the water, and say to him, thus says Yahweh, let my people go, so that they may serve me. Or else, if you do not let my people go, see, I am sending swarms of flies on you and your servants, and on your people, and into your houses. And the house of the Mitzrites shall be filled with swarms of flies, and all the ground on which they stand. And in that day I shall separate the land of Goshen, which is where Yahweh's people are, in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there, so that you know that I am Yahweh in the midst of the land. And I shall put a ransom between my people and your people. Tomorrow this sign shall be. How powerful is that? That you know how random flies, fly around.
Random.
If you got swarms of flies, you would think they would go everywhere.
They're gonna go everywhere.
Right? But the Most High says, I'm making a difference between the Mitzrayims and my people, the children of Israel. Not one fly is going to pester them while you're being tormented by these swarms. And Yahweh did so, and thick swarms of flies came into the house of Pharaoh, and into his servants' houses, and into all the land of Mitzrayim. And the land was ruined because of the swarms of flies. Pharaoh then called for Moshe and Aaron and said, go, slaughter your Elohim in the land. And Moshe said, it is not right to do so. We would be slaughtering the abomination of the Mitzrites to Yahweh our Elohim. See, if we slaughter the abomination of the Mitzrites before their eyes, will they not stone us? In other words, we're not going to perform our duties to our Elohim in Egypt.
Right.
We want to go to our own land and do what he wants us to do. We're not going to be doing this stuff before you people. Not going to happen. Let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness. Then we shall slaughter to Yahweh our Elohim, as he commands us. And Pharaoh said, I am letting you go. Then you shall slaughter to Yahweh your Elohim in the wilderness. Only do not go very far. Pray for me. You got a lot of nerve. And Moshe said, see, when I leave you, I shall pray to Yahweh. And tomorrow the swarms of flies shall depart from Pharaoh, and from his servants, and from his people. But do not let Pharaoh again deceive, not to let the people go to slaughter to Yahweh. And Moshe went out from Pharaoh and prayed to Yahweh. And Yahweh did according to the word of Moshe, and removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, and from his servants, and from his people. Not one remained. But Pharaoh did what? Hardened his heart, as at this time too, and did not let the people go. So we're going to conclude with this verse of scripture. We got a lot more to cover. We're not going to get into it today. This is coming from Psalm 68. Let Elohim arise, and let his enemies be scattered. Let them also that hate him flee before him. As smoke is driven away, so drive them away. As wax melt before the fire, so let the wicked perish at the presence of Elohim. But let the righteous be glad. Yeah. Let them rejoice before Elohim. Yea, let them exceedingly rejoice. Sing unto Elohim. Sing praises to his name. Extol him that rides upon the heavens by his name, Yah, and rejoice before him. We serve the one true Elohim. Make no mistake, he used this scenario to begin to exert himself in the world, to let people know who was God and who wasn't. And this record has been reserved for the whole world to know. Yet and still, all the nations of the world are still choosing to embrace a satanic belief. You know, everywhere you see an obelisk, you know, is a nation that is worshiping the devil behind the scenes. What is called the Washington Monument is nothing but a statue that's dedicated to the devil. It's in every nation on the planet, right? So we need to recognize that Satan has an agenda because he is the God of this world. Yes. But what do we say about all that? Let Elohim arise. Yes. And let his enemies be scattered. All right? Because we serve the Elohim of Israel. Why? Because he is the one true Elohim. We appreciate each and every one of you. Now, does anybody have any questions before we close out today? Any questions at all? Any questions? We trust that you got blessed by this word. We just getting started. We just got so much more to cover. But we just keep building this thing line upon line and precept upon precept. Are there any questions? Feel free to put them in the chat and we will deal with them before we wrap up today. If there's any questions whatsoever. If not, we'll go ahead and close out for the day. All right. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. All right. Rana benediction. Yivadekai Yahweh Badishmareka. Ya'er Yahweh Panavaleka Viakomeka. Yisai Yahweh Panavaleka Viasimlaka. Shalom. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face shine upon you and show you his favor. And may Yahweh lift his countenance upon you and give you what? Shalom. Peace. Nothing missing, nothing broken, and nothing lacking. All right. So I also want to remind you, Saints, to get a chance to visit Dr. Russ E. Hoover. We will be putting these videos on the YouTube channel. This particular series has its own lesson grouping, which is the book of Exodus. For those of you that want to get a chance to visit and listen to our series on the book of Genesis, Genesis also has its own separate group as well. So you can look up the play group, the play listing for the book of Genesis. You can look up this play group for the book of Exodus, and we're going to continue this till we complete the book of Exodus. We're going to move on to the book of Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, and we're going to pour all the way through the scriptures because there's so much information that is not being taught in churches today. And when you don't understand these foundational books of the prophets and the Torah, there's a lot of missing information. You don't fully understand the full plan of Elohim in the world. And so we want to make this thing plain. We want to make it very plain for his believers to understand. So you're not being deceived by doctrines of demons and devils, all right? So again, this will be dropped on YouTube on Tuesday. I normally get them out by 11 a.m., all right? So get a chance to go visit Dr. Russ E. Hoover. Do all those YouTube things, right? Subscribe, give these lessons a thumbs up, hit the bell so you'll be notified when we're dropping new information. And I do need all of you to get a chance to do that now. Visit the channel, give likes to the channel, because what that does is that causes YouTube to continue to promote our channel. We want to get this information out to people all around the world. All right? And so with that said, this is Dr. Russ E. Hoover. We are signing out. And we want to remind all of you that greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. And I also know, because I read the end of the book and I discovered one thing: we win. and the devil loses.
Yeah.
All right? And so till next time, saints, this is Dr. Rusty Hoover signing off. All right. Be blessed. Shalom.